it's Luke bringing you another ownership reaction, this time for the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational. This week's for Draftkings DFS. We're going to be going over my top fades and sleeper picks for this week's event. Some of the guys being a little bit overhyped going into the weekend, some of the guys being a little bit overlooked that you can target for Draftkings contests. And we're going to be using my data-based approach as always to help take on this weekend's slate. I'll be using visualizations, custom modeling, and more that I've learned as an engineer over the years that I use to help take on a variety of daily fantasy sports. I don't just use this analytical approach to take on the PGA Tour. I also cover the NFL, NBA, UFC, and more. So if you're looking for even more data-based content, make sure to check out my channel for more. On top of my video content, I also have a Patreon page where I post my projections for all the players in every PGA Tour field for you guys on there. You get direct access to that data. You also get access to my model rankings, my projected ownership, game theory notes, and more. So make sure to join on there. It's just $1. We also launched my Discord server for Patreons. You can ask me questions at pretty much any point. If I'm awake, if I'm on Discord, I'll get back to you guys and help you guys out with any specific questions as soon as I can. With all that out of the way, let's get started with my ownership reaction video. Kicking it off with the fades for this week. These are going to be full-on fades for me. We only have a 60-man field, so full-on fading people is the way to go. You can only play a handful of guys in a field like this. These are three of the guys that won't make my player pool for one reason or another. At number 3, we have Shane Lowry, an $8,600 golfer, expected to be owned in around 17.82% of lineups. And while he's been on quite a run of late, he has quite a run of nice finishes, including a nice finish at the Olympic Games last week. He still remains very inaccurate off the tee. TPC Southwind, you cannot get away with being a sprayer of the golf ball, especially off of the tee. There are plenty of water hazards in play, and Lowry has hit just 57% of his fairways, even over that very solid stretch of golf. So I can normally stomach playing Lowry, especially at lower ownership, 6-7%. You don't really have to invest too much into him to get over the field. But at 17, nearly 18% ownership, you're really going to have to put a hefty sum down on him. I think that his volatility off the tee isn't going to help him this week. I think he's going to hit a few water balls. And as a result, I see myself pivoting off him to adjacent options such as Patrick Reed or Webb Simpson just about 100% of the time. And at number 2 for my fades list, we have Hideki Matsuyama, a $9,400 golfer going to be owned in around 16.27% of lineups. I was very surprised by Hideki last week. I thought the pressure was going to get to him. Instead of crumbling under that pressure, he came through, absolutely survived the pressure cooker, and ended up finishing in 4th place. This week, though, I don't necessarily think it's the best course fit for him. Last week's Kasamugaseki was a very good fit for Matsuyama. This week in Memphis, it's just not necessarily the best course for him. Hideki used to be a very magical around the green player. He normally gained around 0.3 to 0.5 shots gained around the green per round in 2018 and 2019. But since then, he really hasn't been that wizard around the green. He's just gaining 0.04 shots gained around the green per round over his last 36. He's also been very poor with the putter. He's always been somebody who loses strokes with the putter, but he's been losing 0.66 strokes per round on the greens. That's something that isn't sustainable. Obviously, we've seen him miss a few cuts recently, some mediocre performances as well. But when he's putted well, he's definitely seen himself in contention. On a top event like this at the WGC, where around the green is going to be very much emphasized, where you're going to have to make birdies in bunches to beat the world's best, I just think it's too much ownership to invest in someone with such a glaring weakness in the flat stick. And for my number 1 fade, we have JT, Justin Thomas. He's going to be owned in just over 13% of lineups and 13.45% of lineups, and he comes in just under $10,000 at $9,900. He's one of my core plays from last week. He was somebody that I was hoping would bring the flat stick around, score a lot at the Olympics where it really meant so much for his country and for his personal pride. But that was far from the truth. That was far from happening. He was somebody who looked quite horrible for the entire event, especially the first 2 days. On the first 2 days, he was in feature group coverage. He was being followed by the broadcast on NBC, and we got to see a lot of his shots, which I'm glad I was able to see them. I was glad to understand what JT's going through right now because it doesn't look pretty. His distance control with his wedges was off. That's typically something that's a hallmark of his game. His driving accuracy was absolutely horrendous. The only way he could really hit fairways was when he clubbed down, was hitting irons off tees, and that's not really what you want to see from somebody coming in as the defending champion at an event. It's hard enough to have that pressure of being a defending champion. It's hard enough having that price increase because you won last year, but coming in with inflated ownership, a game that looks like it's in shambles, the putter's still not there, obviously. I don't necessarily think that he's the best person to invest in at this WGC event. I'd be much more willing to go to someone like Victor Hovland, even Louis Oosthuizen, who's a big discount off someone like JT. So as a result, he's going to be a fade for me at this week's event. Now hopping into the sleeper picks for this week's event. At number 3, we have Harris English, a $7,600 priced golfer, only expected to be owned in about 8.16% of lineups. He's coming in sneaky hot, if that's even possible for somebody who won just a few months ago. Statistically, he's been one of the best players in the entire field over the last 36 rounds. That's not surprising given that he has a win over that span, but he has gains across all four major statistical categories, which is great to see. He doesn't have any part of his game where it's really going to hold him back, and that's important at a hard golf course like we're seeing at TPC Southwind. And on top of having a consistent skill set, he's been a very good birdie maker over that same stretch. He's ranks top 20 in the field in birdie or better percentage, and at just 8% ownership, it's relatively easy to get over the field on him, and I will be doing so in plenty of formats, not just GPP formats. I think he's a great cash play. I think he's also a very good head-to-head play. I really can't find a problem with this game at all this week. For my number 2 sleeper, we have Cameron Smith, priced at $8,200, owned in about 6.5% of lineups, and he's an absolute gamer. That's how I describe Cameron Smith. He's a big game hunter. He elevates his game when the stage is the biggest, and he's by far the best player in the world that loses strokes consistently off the tee. That's a statement that I've yet to check. I'm not going down the world rankings or anything like that. But he notably always loses strokes off the tee. He's very inaccurate. He's also not very long as well. But he ends up finishing well. He ends up scoring well in fantasy contests. He ends up making plenty of birdies despite that lack of a skill set off the tee. And I'm definitely going right back to him at a golf course that prioritizes around the gameplay, prioritizes making birdies, and that's exactly what he does. If we take a look at how he's done statistically over the last 36 rounds, he's gaining 0.28 strokes on approach per round, 0.48 shots gained around the green, and 0.4 shots gained putting, which shows that he's exactly what we're looking for at this course. He's somebody who's been putting himself in plenty of opportunities to score. He's been chipping in from all over the place, and of course he has that magical putter. Last week at the Olympics, if you guys were watching, he seemed to be making 25, 30, even 40-foot putts just left and right, especially on Saturday, especially on Sunday when he was making that late push. And that's exactly what I'm looking for from him. Some people might be scared by that kind of putting performance, but that's exactly what Cameron Smith does. He's an absolute freak, an absolute animal out there. He just puts the ball in the hole. And at 6.5% ownership, it's even easier than Harris English to get leverage on him, and I'm definitely going to be doing so. And now finally for the number 1 sleeper pick, it is Scottie Scheffler, a $9,100 golfer, expected to be owned in 11.98% of lineups, so nearly 12%. He's the lowest owned player in all of the 9K range, even at that 12% number. He's my number 1 sleeper pick, and it's somebody I actually have an outright bet on. I absolutely love how he sets up for this golf tournament. I think he's being disrespected in the betting market as well. He's coming in with solid form of late. He has 3 top 10 finishes out of his last 4 starts. The one non-top 10 was a made cut, so I'm not holding that against him too much. And he's gained across all 4 major statistical categories over his last 36 rounds as well. Where he's really made his hay, though, has been off the tee. He's gained 0.75 strokes off the tee per round. That is a top 3 number in the field. So on top of coming in with good form and a good skill set, he's always been a prolific fantasy scorer. He comes in number 2 in the field in birdie or better percentage over the last 36 rounds, and he's been the number 2 fantasy scorer in the entire field, only trailing Bryson DeChambeau for the year. So he's somebody that I always target in fantasy formats. He puts up a ton of birdies, and especially on Draftkings where you emphasize those birdies, that's exactly what you're looking for. He comes in as my number 1 value play this week, my number 1 sleeper pick, and I'm going to have plenty of Scottie Scheffler in my lineups. Thanks for watching, guys. That's all I've got for my fades and sleeper picks for this week's event. Let me know who your biggest fade this week is for a chance to win a free month of my Patreon projections. Just go ahead and put a couple comments down with some of those fades. I'll pick one next week for a free month of those projections like I mentioned. If you guys don't want to try and win it for free, you guys want direct access right now to those Patreon projections, make sure to go and check out the link in the description for that. It has the link there. It's only $1 for the month, like I said before, so it's a great value. You get access to 4 weeks worth of projections, so make sure to take advantage of that. Make sure to like and subscribe if you guys enjoy the content. It really helps me out with growing the channel and with getting more of a following and everything like that. So it really goes a long way, and I really do appreciate if you guys could do that. So like and subscribe. See you guys next time for my videos next week. We will be covering the Wyndham Championship, the last week before the FedEx Cup playoffs.